Hey everybody. Today I wanted to make a video about StepManiaX pad sensitivity. I'm going to be going through the optimal sensitivity, how to test for and diagnose sensitivity issues, and how to fix the most common sensitivity issues. So what is the optimal sensitivity for a StepManiaX panel or dance game panel in general? To me, the optimal sensitivity means being as sensitive as possible while not ghosting and not causing any disruption to the player. So as you can see in this video, I can press really lightly with my finger on the inside sensors of each of my panels and they will trigger. However, if I do a drill or any other kind of technique where I'm stomping very hard on the pad, yeah, I will not trigger any of the panels that I'm not currently touching. When I got my first StepManiaX pad, I quickly noticed an issue where panels were being pressed even when I wasn't stepping on them. So I'd get a random early in songs where I hadn't even stepped on the panel or near the panel. I would also get held misses or boys, decents and way offs in StepMania on foot switches and drills, especially. For example, I would be doing a drill on the left and right arrow as seen in the video, and my up arrow would be triggering randomly. When I got my second pad, I had the opposite issue with a few of my panels. The panels were really difficult to press down, and I noticed these especially in songs with extremely fast stream where I need to use compact, light pressured steps, and in songs with many brackets or hitting multiple arrows with one foot. I noticed this especially in some of the ITL content with like up right, up left, down right brackets, where you had to kind of do them in quick succession. Um, so neither of my pads initially came with rubber corner grommets, and after I installed the rubber corner grommets, a lot of my issues were automatically resolved, especially the oversensitivity issues on pad 1. So I highly recommend getting the rubber corner grommets and installing them immediately if your pads did not come with them initially. The first step to troubleshooting sensitivity issues and sensor issues in your StepManiaX pad is to use the hardware diagnostics tool built into StepManiaX. There's also a PC version of this tool, but in this video, I'll be showing how to diagnose using this built-in hardware diagnostics. As you can see in the video, to get to this mode, you have to either press the button on the back of your monitor, or if you have a Dedicab, the operator button inside of the Dedicab to get to the operator menu, and then you click on hardware and then diagnostics. One test I like to start out with is putting my toe in the very middle of the panel and pressing down like you can see in the video. You should see a pretty even distribution between all the sensors. If one is pressing down with way more pressure than the others, or one is not lighting up at all, then you can kind of see that you have an oversensitivity or undersensitivity issue on that specific sensor. Another test you could do is just try to recreate whatever you're seeing in the game. If you're doing a drill and you're seeing another one light up, another panel light up, then just do that drill on this menu. See what the other panels look like. See, you can go through each individual sensor. There's 4 per panel, and you can press down and see if you can tell if one is less sensitive or more sensitive than the other. You might also see an issue where when you press down on the sensor, they might not be releasing as fast, like going back down to 0 as fast as you would like. That can lead to held misses. Also, you might see resting pressure on some sensors. So, especially if you don't have the corner grommets, you might see non-zero values here, like values of between 3 and 100 even, of resting pressure on a given sensor. And this can be really bad because if you just jiggle the pad a little bit, well, maybe that sensor will trigger and trigger your arrow. So, those are the things to look out for in this menu. Once you've diagnosed the oversensitivity or undersensitivity issue in a certain panel, you can remove that acrylic panel, but make sure you take the orientation of the panel into consideration. Do not rotate your panel when you put it back on because panels can come slightly bent and this will change the pressure on different sensors. So you want to keep the orientation of your panel the same when you put it back on later. So just lay your panel to the side with the same orientation. Then you can literally take your finger, press on each sensor, and make sure that the bars are lighting up. If a sensor seems undersensitive to you when you're pressing on it with your finger, it may need to be replaced. You do have one extra sensor in StepManiaX by default. It's the up sensor in the center panel. The game actually doesn't use that one, so you could remove that sensor and replace another sensor to try to debug and see if it's actually the sensor that's the issue. If they're discolored, it's possible that the sensor got wet, and the wet sensors generally don't work very well, so you might have to replace it. You can also buy replacement sensors on the StepManiaX website if you do need to replace a sensor. Also to be noted, when you're touching the sensors with your finger, make sure that the values are snapping back to zero instantly when you release. You should literally be able to press it with your finger, see about 220, and then release your finger and have it go to zero almost instantly. If this isn't happening, it could be a sensor issue and you should try a replacement sensor to see if the issue gets fixed. Once you've ruled out any sensor issues with the finger test, it's time to tape mod the pad. So the first type of tape modding I'll be showing in the video is for under sensitivity if you want to increase the sensitivity of a given sensor. So first we've removed the corner grommets and then we carefully peel off the sensor, then use blue painter's tape or another extremely thin type of tape like this to put under the sensor to raise the sensor up just a tiny bit. You want to start with one or two pieces of tape because you don't want to make your pad oversensitive to the point where it starts ghosting. So I would just use one or two pieces of painter's tape like you can see in the video, put them under the sensor, replace the corner grommets, place the panel on the sensor and actually press it with your finger and just see if it feels better before you screw in all the screws. When you screw in the screws, sometimes sensitivity can change, so do go ahead, screw in the screws. Use your foot to test, use your finger to test, and see if the sensitivity is better now. You want to have, again, uniform sensitivity, so you can do the big toe test where you put your toe in the middle of the panel and see if all of your sensors have uniform pressure when you press right in the center. In order to fix oversensitivity, we're going to put blue painter's tape on either side of the gray or black foam on the underside of your acrylic panel. Make sure you do not change the orientation of your panel again because you need to know which piece of foam is lining up with which sensor and your panel might be slightly bent from play. So as you can see in the video, you only want to put one or two small pieces of blue painter's tape on either side of the foam for the given sensor. You do not want to cover up the screw holes, and you want to make sure that your painter's tape is flat. You don't want any creases because this very small distance that you're separating the foam and the sensor is all you need. You don't want any extra distance in there. So again, once you put the blue painter tape on either side of the foam for your sensor, you can replace the panel, test with your finger or your toe, and then screw the screws back in, test once more, and make sure that the oversensitivity issue is no longer present. For this issue, you might also want to do a release test where you press down and release, make sure the sensor is snapping back to zero, or a drill test where you're doing drills on a different part of the pad and making sure that the resting pressure isn't spiking on this panel. That's pretty much it for the tape mod tutorial. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below or reach out to me on Twitch or on the StepManiaX official Discord at McClouchick. Appreciate you guys watching and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.